A $30 fruit tree from a garden center. That's it. That's what stands between you and roughly $42,000 worth of free fruit over the next 50 years. And no, that's not some made-up number. According to data from University Extension Services across the country, a single standard apple tree produces around 500 pounds of fruit per year. Over a 50-year productive lifespan, that adds up to 25,000 pounds. At today's average grocery store price of about $1.70 per pound for conventional apples, that's over $42,000 of fruit from one tree that cost you $30. But the apple tree isn't even the most impressive one on this list. Some of these trees survive -50 degrees. Some produce fruit for centuries. And one of them tastes like it belongs in a tropical smoothie, even though it grows in Ohio. These are 12 fruit trees you plant once and harvest forever. Before we get into the individual trees, you need to understand why this is such a ridiculously good investment. The National Gardening Association found that home food gardens produce an average of $600 worth of produce per year against only about $70 in supplies. A separate 2025 survey by Front Door estimated that food gardeners saved closer to $875 per year. And get this, Missouri Extension says that just 2 apple trees can supply a family of 4 with all the fresh apples they need. The economics get even crazier when you look at the organic price gap. A 2024 analysis of USDA data found that organic produce costs about 53% more than conventional. When you grow your own fruit, you're getting organic quality for basically nothing. No sprays, no markup, no middleman. And then there's the property value angle. USDA Forest Service research shows that mature trees increase home values by 3 to 20%. A Portland, Oregon study found that a single tree with a 300 square foot canopy within 100 feet of a home raised the property's value by roughly $7,000. So even your house gets more valuable. The fruit is just a bonus. Now let's get into the trees, and I've saved some absolute surprises for the end of this list, so stick around. Number 12. The apple tree. We're starting with the obvious one because honestly, nothing else on this list even comes close to the raw production numbers. A standard apple tree growing in a backyard orchard somewhere in New England or the upper Midwest can pump out 450 to 900 pounds of apples per year. That is insane volume from a single tree. And if you're in a seriously cold climate, you're not out of luck. Honeycrisp was specifically bred at the University of Minnesota and thrives all the way down to Zone 3. Goodland, developed in Manitoba, Canada, stores for up to 20 weeks after harvest. And Wolf River produces individual apples that can weigh up to 1 pound each. The trade-off? You need at least 2 different varieties for cross-pollination, planted within about 50 feet of each other. But honestly, that just means double the apples. Standard trees can live 50 to 80 years or longer. There's an apple tree in Vancouver, Washington, a Rambo variety planted in 1826, and it was still producing fruit nearly 200 years later. Number 11. The pear tree. If the apple is the king of production, the pear is the king of easy. Pear trees have fewer pest and disease problems than any other common fruit tree. They rarely need spraying. You basically plant them and walk away. University of Minnesota Extension recommends varieties like Summercrisp and Parker for cold climates, both Zone 4 hardy and resistant to fire blight, which is the biggest threat to pear trees. For the true cold warriors in Zone 3, Ure, developed at the University of Alberta, and Golden Spice from the University of Minnesota are your best bets. But here's the real selling point for pear trees. Their productive lifespan can stretch 50 to over 100 years. And if you want proof, look up the Endicott pear tree in Danvers, Massachusetts. It was planted around 1630, and it is still bearing fruit nearly 400 years later. That single tree has been producing pears since before the United States existed. One quirk you should know about pears, though. You have to pick them mature, but unripe, and let them ripen indoors. Leave them on the tree and they turn gritty and mushy from the inside out. It's the opposite of every other fruit. Number 10. the Tart Cherry. Here's why tart cherries deserve a spot this high on the list. Every single variety is self-fertile. You only need one tree. For anyone with a small backyard, that's a big deal. The Montmorency cherry is the standard bearer. According to Dave Wilson Nursery, it accounts for over 95% of all tart cherry production in the United States. It thrives in zones 4 through 7 and produces 50 to 80 pounds of cherries per year, perfect for pies, cobblers, preserves, and that ruby red tart cherry juice. But the real story here is what came out of the University of Saskatchewan. They spent 50 years crossbreeding sour cherries with Mongolian dwarf cherries, and the result was the Romance series. Carmine Jewel, Romeo and Juliet are all bush-type cherries that stay just 6 to 8 feet tall, survive -40 degrees Fahrenheit, and grow in zones 2 through 7. Some of them, like Juliet, actually have higher sugar content than many sweet cherry varieties, even though they're technically classified as sour. And the health benefits? Multiple studies show that tart cherry juice reduces muscle soreness after exercise, improves sleep quality thanks to its high melatonin content, and may reduce symptoms of arthritis. You're literally growing medicine. Number 9. The European Plum. If you want the absolute lowest maintenance fruit tree you can put in the ground, this is it. European plums are self-fertile, need almost no pruning, have very few pest problems, and bloom later than Japanese plums, which means they're way more reliable in frost-prone cold climates. Stanley is the most widely planted European plum in North America, and it does fine on its own without a pollinator tree. Damson plums have been cultivated for over 2,000 years. The name literally comes from Damascus, Syria, and the Romans brought them to England. But my favorite on this list is the Toka plum, sometimes called the Bubblegum Plum because the flesh genuinely tastes like candy. It's a hybrid that survives down to -50 degrees Fahrenheit and grows in zone 3. That's almost comically cold hardy for a tree that produces sweet, edible fruit. One more thing about European plums, they're the only plums that can be dried into prunes. Japanese plums don't have the right sugar content or flesh density. So if you want to make your own prunes, dried plums, or that incredible damson gin that the British have been perfecting for centuries, European plums are the only option. Number 8. The Mulberry. Okay, this is where the list starts getting really interesting. Mulberries are the most underrated fruit tree in North America, and it's not even close. A mature mulberry tree can produce anywhere from 100 to over 600 pounds of fruit per year. That's potentially more fruit per tree than anything else on this list except apples. And the lifespan? Mulberries typically live 50 to 75 years, but some white mulberry specimens have been documented living over 400 years. Illinois Everbearing is the go-to variety for home growers. It's self-fertile, grows in zone 4, and ripens fruit over a 3-month window rather than all at once, so you're not drowning in berries for 1 week and then done. Now, here's the fun fact that makes mulberries the best conversation starter in any garden. White mulberry pollen launches at over half the speed of sound. It accelerates from 0 to roughly 350 miles per hour in less than half a millisecond. That's the fastest recorded movement in the entire plant kingdom. And the historical angle is wild too. Mulberry trees literally built the Silk Road. White mulberry leaves are the exclusive food of silkworms. And the entire Silk Road trade network that connected China to Europe was fundamentally built on mulberry cultivation. The one downside? Mulberry fruit stains absolutely everything. So don't plant one near your driveway or a white fence. Trust me on that one. Number 7. The American Persimmon. The name Diosporos, the genus for persimmon trees, is Greek for fruit of the gods. And once you've tasted a fully ripe American persimmon, you'll understand why. This is a native tree that's incredibly cold hardy. The meter variety, developed specifically for northern climates, survived -31.6 degrees Fahrenheit during trials at the University of Wisconsin. It's also self-fertile and produces seedless fruit, which makes it one of the most user-friendly persimmon options out there. American persimmons have virtually no pest or disease problems and require almost no maintenance once established. They produce for 50 to 75 years at peak, with the USDA noting maximum seed-bearing age at about 125 years. But here's the detail that always blows people's minds. The heartwood of the American persimmon is true ebony. It's in the same botanical family as the tropical ebony used in fine furniture and piano keys. The catch? The ebony heartwood doesn't develop until the tree is roughly 100 years old. Now, there is one critical thing you need to know about American persimmons. You have to wait until the fruit is completely, totally, ridiculously soft and ripe before eating it. If you bite into an unripe American persimmon, the astringency will make your entire mouth pucker shut. It's genuinely one of the most unpleasant taste experiences in nature, but fully ripe? It's like custard made of honey and dates. If you're enjoying this and learning something new, hit subscribe. I put out videos like this about gardening, homesteading, and growing your own food every week. Now let's talk about the most surprising tree on this entire list. Number 6. The Pawpaw. Picture this, a fruit that tastes like a creamy blend of banana, mango, and pineapple. It grows on a tree that survives to -20 degrees. It has 3 times the vitamin C of apples, and it's completely native to eastern North America. That's the pawpaw. It's the largest edible fruit native to this continent, and it's the only temperate member of the entirely tropical custard apple family. Every other species in its family grows in the tropics. The pawpaw said, "No thanks, I'm going to thrive in Ohio and Kentucky and Pennsylvania." Iowa State Extension reports that pawpaw grows in zones 5 through 8, with some growers pushing it into zone 4. Grafted trees produce fruit in 3 to 5 years, and individual fruits can weigh up to a pound each. At farmers markets, pawpaws sell for $4.50 to over $8 per pound. That makes them one of the most valuable fruits you can grow at home. Kentucky State University, which runs the National Pawpaw Research Program, found that pawpaw fruit contains more calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, zinc, copper, and manganese than apples, bananas, and oranges combined. Lewis and Clark ate them during their expedition. George Washington grew them at Mount Vernon. The Shawnee people dedicated an entire month to celebrating the pawpaw harvest. The catch? You need at least 2 genetically different trees because pawpaws won't pollinate themselves, and they're pollinated by flies and beetles, not bees. So hand-pollinating with a small paintbrush dramatically improves your harvest. Number 5. The Serviceberry, also called the Saskatoon berry. This is the most cold-hardy fruiting plant on this entire list. Serviceberries survive temperatures down to -58 degrees Fahrenheit. The city of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, was literally named after this plant. That's how important it was to the people who lived there. Northline, Smoky, and Regent are the top varieties for home growers, all hardy to Zone 2. They're self-fertile, meaning one plant produces fruit and they start bearing in just 2 to 4 years after planting. The flavor is sweet with a slight almond-like note, and you can substitute them for blueberries in any recipe. In fact, a study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that Saskatoon berries contain more vitamin C, fiber, iron, and protein than blueberries, plus 452 milligrams of polyphenols per 100 grams. Historically, Saskatoon berries were the most important plant food for the Blackfoot, Cree, and other Plains nations. They mixed dried berries with buffalo meat and fat to create pemmican, which is essentially the original energy bar, and it's the preserved food that sustained the entire fur trade across Canada. Number 4. Cold-hardy apricot. This is the surprise pick. When you think of apricots, you probably think of California or the Mediterranean. But prairie-bred apricot varieties have had flower buds survive -42 degrees Fahrenheit and still produce a full crop the following summer. Goldcott, developed at Michigan State in 1967, is self-fruitful and reliable in Zone 4, and Moorpark apricots have an incredible pedigree. Thomas Jefferson grew them at Monticello, And the variety has been continuously cultivated since the late 1600s, making it one of the oldest named fruit varieties still commercially available. Utah State Extension notes that apricots bloom early, which is both their superpower and their Achilles heel. In zones 4 and 5, you may only get fruit 3 out of every 5 years because a late spring frost can wipe out the blossoms. So apricots are a bonus crop, not a guaranteed one. But in the years they do produce, a standard tree gives you 50 to 200 pounds of fruit. Number 3. Elderberry. This is the fastest producer on the entire list. Elderberries can fruit in their very first year after planting. In 2 to 3 years, you will have a fully productive bush cranking out 12 to 15 pounds of berries per season. The Bob Gordon variety, bred in the Midwest, can produce 25 to 35 pounds. Elderberry is hardy in zones 3 through 9, making it one of the most adaptable plants you can grow. The American elderberry, Sambucus canadensis, thrives across nearly the entire continental United States and Canada. The commercial angle on elderberry is fascinating. The United States elderberry supplement market reached $320 million per year, driven almost entirely by elderberry syrup's reputation as an immune booster. During the height of COVID, demand surged so hard that it essentially exhausted the entire United States supply of elderberries. But here's the critical safety note. Raw elderberries, stems, leaves, and unripe fruit contain compounds called cyanogenic glycosides that break down into cyanide in your body. You must cook elderberries before eating them. This is one of the few common fruits that is essentially poisonous until it hits heat. On the plus side, elderberry propagation is almost stupidly easy. You can literally cut a branch off a bush, stick it in wet soil, and it will root and grow into a new plant. Number 2. Edible Crabapple. Here's a tree that almost nobody thinks of as a food producer, and that's a huge mistake. Edible crabapple varieties are nature's pectin factory. They have so much natural pectin that you can make perfect homemade jelly and jam without buying a single packet of commercial pectin. Just mix crabapple juice with any low pectin fruit and you're set. Dolgo is the premier variety. The name comes from the Russian word for long because this tree was brought to North America from Siberia and survived centuries of natural selection in some of the hardest climates on Earth. It's hardy to zone 3, survives -40 degrees, and makes stunning rose-colored jelly. Chestnut crabapple, bred at the University of Minnesota, is hardy to zone 2 and has a sweet, nutty flavor that earned it the nickname the dessert crabapple. And Hughes Virginia crabapple is the legendary cider variety that both George Washington and Thomas Jefferson grew at their estates. Here's the bonus. Crab apples double as pollinators for your standard apple trees. So if you plant one crab apple alongside your Honeycrisp or Liberty apple, you solve the pollination problem and get a whole second crop of fruit for jelly, cider, and preserving. That's a 2-for-1 deal that nobody talks about. Crab apple trees typically live 40 to 70 years, with some specimens pushing past 100. And now, number 1. The tree that made me do a double take the first time I learned about it. The Chicago hardy fig. Yes, you can grow figs in zone 5. The Chicago hardy fig's root system survives down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. In zones 5 and 6, the top of the tree freezes to the ground every winter. And then, every spring, it regrows from the roots and still produces a full crop of ripe figs by late summer. It is basically unkillable. According to Stark Brothers Nursery, this variety is self-pollinating and can start producing fruit in just 1 to 3 years. Missouri Botanical Garden lists it as reliably hardy in zones 6 through 10, with root survival pushing into zone 5 with mulching. Figs themselves are botanical weirdness at its finest. What you think of as a fig fruit is technically an inverted flower called a syconium. The actual flowers are on the inside of that fleshy structure. So when you eat a fig, you're eating a bouquet of flowers that's been turned inside out. But the wildest fact of all? According to a study published in the journal Science in 2006, figs were the very first domesticated crop in human history. Researchers found evidence of cultivated figs in the Jordan Valley dating back 11,400 years, roughly 1,000 years before wheat and barley. Humans have been planting fig trees longer than any other food crop on Earth. And that, honestly, is the perfect way to close this out. People have been planting fruit trees and harvesting from them for thousands and thousands of years. The trees on this list survived ice ages, world wars, and everything in between. A family that invests $300 to $400 in 8 to 12 of these trees today could harvest tens of thousands of pounds of fruit over the coming decades, worth well over $50,000 at grocery store prices. 7 of the 12 trees on this list are self-fertile, meaning you only need a single tree to get fruit. And some of them, like that pear tree in Massachusetts, might still be producing fruit 400 years from now. So plant something this year, even if it's just one tree, because the best time to plant a fruit tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. If you want to see which vegetables you can grow alongside these fruit trees to build a complete food garden, that video is on screen now. Subscribe so you don't miss it.